Hi friends, want to shrink the most dangerous belly fat, the visceral kind, hidden deep inside just by changing what's on your plate? So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to target visceral fat with the top 10 fat burning foods, explain the biochemistry behind how they switch your metabolism into fat burning mode, and walk you through real recipes to make it a practical exercise. And we're going to share some purposeful movements that can amplify your results. So I'm talking about freeing your liver, your pancreas, and your intestines from the visceral fat that currently has a chokehold on your metabolism. And this will help you regain your metabolic youth. So visceral fat, if you don't already know, is a silent driver of inflammation, fatty liver, diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. But the good news is visceral fat is also the easiest fat to burn once you know how to do it. So let's start with number 1, carrots. And I'm not talking about pills or powders. I'm talking about fresh carrots that are loaded with beta carotene and lycopene, powerful carotenoids that just don't make your food colorful. They switch on fat burning pathways deep inside your cells. So here's a practical way to eat carrots. Now you boil some carrots in a pan, immerse it about halfway in water. You can add some turmeric, which is a great source of curcumin. This synergizes with your carotenoids to amplify AMPK. Now boil it until the carrots are soft and then pour out the excess liquid. However, save that because you've already reduced it and some of the carrot juices in it. That can make a delicious sauce later. But first, let's lightly drizzle a little bit of olive oil just to coat the carrots and to help you absorb the beta carotene. Now, take the carrots out, pour the sauce back into the pan, chop some garlic, some chili to taste, and maybe even a tablespoon of date paste and a teaspoon of miso if you like the salt. I would add a little bit of vinegar to get a sweet and sour sauce, and then you reduce that sauce. At the end, you're going to drizzle it over your carrots. Now, this dish talks to your metabolism. You're not just eating fewer calories. Carrots are high in fiber, and it changes the signaling that your cells receive. I love using carrots as a gateway food. Now, once people taste how good simple carrots can be prepared, they realize that fat loss doesn't have to mean deprivation every day. It can mean flavor, color, and powerful biochemistry working in your favor. Number 2, fat and prolonged sugar spikes with high fiber sweet potatoes, also carotenoid rich and are loaded with resistant starch, a form of carbohydrate that slows your glucose absorption and improves insulin sensitivity. Stable blood sugar means lower insulin spikes, and lower insulin spikes means less visceral fat deposition. And because resistant starch ferments in the gut into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, it indirectly activates AMPK and improves mitochondrial fat oxidation. Orange sweet potatoes are rich in carotenoids, but I also love foods that are high in polyphenols, like purple sweet potatoes. I like to make batches of steamed purple sweet potatoes that I can use as a base to make other things like fudge brownies. Now, did you know that purple sweet potatoes are a staple food in Okinawa, Japan? And if you've ever heard of Okinawa, you probably know that they are some of the longest lived people on earth. And sweet potatoes have really helped Okinawans reduce obesity and metabolic syndrome. And they used to be one of the lowest in the world. So number 3 is red bell peppers, which can support lower cortisol because of less visceral fat accumulation when you eat them. Chronic cortisol elevation drives fat storage, especially visceral fat storage. Red and yellow bell peppers are rich in vitamin C as well as carotenoids, which help blunt the cortisol response. And lower cortisol means less central fat accumulation. Now, I love bell peppers in my salad eaten raw, or you can use it as an edible spoon to scoop up your food. Then there is a quick stir fry that you can do if you stir fry red onions first and then add bell peppers, garlic, ginger, and some tofu. Keep the oils low. This dish is high in fiber and high in micronutrients. Now, have you noticed that the first 3 foods are red and orange in color? That means those foods are rich in carotenoids and vitamin A. Now, here's how it works. So when you eat carotenoids, they circulate and get taken up by so many different cells in your body, all these different organs, especially your liver, as well as your fat cells. Now, inside the cell, they activate PPAR alpha, peroxisome proliferator activated receptor alpha. That's a major fat-burning switch, the same one activated during fasting and endurance training. Now, PPAR alpha upregulates genes involved in beta oxidation, helping your mitochondria turn stored fat into usable energy. At the same time, carotenoids suppress SREB1C, a transcription factor that drives fat storage. So you're basically hitting the brakes on storage and pressing the gas on fat burning when you eat orange and red whole foods. But that's not all. Carotenoids are antioxidants. They neutralize reactive oxygen species that accumulate when you've got too much visceral fat. This lowers inflammation, like TNF-alpha, interleukin-6, the very cytokines that make belly fat so metabolically dangerous. The more carotenoids you eat in whole foods, the more powerful your fat-burning metabolism becomes. Now remember, portion size is in proportion to the size of the consumer in relation to the other foods that one eats. So if you just eat a little piece of bell pepper and you're eating a big old giant bowl of everything else, then it's not going to have a lot of power, right? It's important to load up your meals first with carotenoid-rich foods. And when you eat enough of them, pigment literally will help your skin glow to make you more attractive. It turns out some people are pale because they eat pale food. You're also going to be getting lots of vitamin C. Vitamin C is a cofactor in the carnitine synthesis, helping shuttle fatty acids into mitochondria for oxidation. And the carotenoids, they add antioxidants, dampening inflammatory pathways in your fat tissue. And it's not just about calories, it's about sending the right hormonal signals, because visceral fat, it doesn't just sit there like a milk jug. It is an endocrine organ, constantly releasing inflammatory molecules such as TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor, and interleukin-6 that I mentioned before, as well as resistin and leptin, and these are in abnormal levels. So the more visceral fat you have, the more your hormones are imbalanced. It messes up your insulin signaling pathways that are directly talking to your liver and muscles. This leads to higher fasting blood glucose, which leads to higher fasting blood triglycerides. And then this accumulates more fat in the liver. You know, being super skinny doesn't protect you. Ever heard of TOFI? Thin on the outside and fat inside? That's visceral fat, which impairs mitochondrial function, making your cells less efficient at burning fat. And mitochondrial damage is really the root cause, because mitochondria are in every cell except your red blood cells. And that's why your red blood cells can transport oxygen. Otherwise, it would literally use it up. However, they don't survive very long. They have to turn over every 3 months. So premature aging means your other cells are struggling with mitochondria. And when you run low in mitochondria, your cells don't make it, and then they can't replace themselves. Hence, it's not a good idea to destroy mitochondria. The good news is your mitochondria are incredibly resilient and responsive to diet and movement. And again, I'm rambling off some foreign terms for a couple of minutes. Here are the key metabolic pathways to remember. AMPK activation, which turns on fat oxidation. Sirtuin-1 and PCG, it boosts mitochondrial biogenesis. And beta oxidation, it breaks down stored triglycerides into usable energy. There's also adiponectin signaling, which improves insulin sensitivity and fat burning. So here's why these terms shouldn't be a foreign language. Targeting foods and lifestyle that activate enzymes like AMPK and reduce inflammatory signals is how you melt your visceral fat. And you need to melt it from inside out. And that's what carotenoids do. And do you know where to find them? Yes, the natural pigments in red, orange, as well as green plants. So every time you see an orange color or a red color like tomatoes or a green color like spinach, they all have carotenoids. Again, it's more than just pretty colors. Carotenoids, they neutralize free radicals that's attacking your cells all the time. And they stabilize unstable molecules that are trying to damage your cell membranes and DNA to make you prematurely age. So if it helps you stay young by reducing oxidative stress, why won't people eat more of it? I mean, you're only going to benefit by reducing visceral fat and help regulate gene expression. A trial in Japan found that 8 weeks of giving people carotenoid-rich vegetables significantly reduced their visceral fat. Lycopene from carrots and cabbage was particularly powerful.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
Now, if you want to elevate your game, then focus on leafy greens. One of the most popular is spinach, which is rich in lutein, magnesium, and other plant polyphenols, all which help insulin work better. Now, the reason why leafy greens are so important is because they are a rich source of potassium and magnesium, which improves glucose metabolism. Lutein has been shown to lower oxidative stress inside adipocytes, or fat cells. This improves insulin signaling and shifts your metabolic balance from storing fat towards burning it. Plus, greens are ultra low in calories and naturally volume dense, which supports caloric deficit without feeling hungry. Now, some people blend greens with berries. I actually do that myself, but not with spinach. I'm not a fan of blended spinach because it's one of the most common greens that get contaminated due to it being a low-growing vegetable and difficult to wash. I prefer another green metabolic powerhouse in my berry smoothie, and that is kale. Kale is one of the most metabolically powerful cruciferous vegetables that you can eat. It's not just healthy, it directly targets the same biochemical pathways that drive visceral fat accumulation. Kale is a part of the cruciferous family, along with broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. And what makes kale special isn't just their fiber and vitamins, it's actually a molecule called glucosinolate. So when you chew and chop your kale, these compounds are converted into isothiocyanates, which have real metabolic effects. Now, visceral fat burns best when your liver is working at its optimal. Sulforaphane activates phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the liver, especially glutathione S-transferase. Your liver is where fat gets mobilized, packaged, and burned. A sluggish liver means stubborn belly fat. Sulforaphane and kale's polyphenols activate NRF2, a transcription factor that ramps up your body's antioxidant defense system. This calms the oxidative stress and indirectly supports AMPK activation, pushing your body to burn stored fat instead of storing more fat. Kale and other cruciferous vegetables, they support healthy estrogen metabolism, shifting metabolism towards less active estrogen metabolites. Now, this all helps reduce central fat accumulation. Kale is also rich in insoluble and soluble fiber. Now, this blunts glucose spikes, improves insulin sensitivity, and feeds your gut bacteria to make more short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which then further activates AMPK. There are different ways to eat kale. Lightly steam or saute them to enhance nutrient absorption while keeping glucosinolates active. Now, I would pre-chop it for about 30 minutes to an hour before you cook them. Now, blend it into green smoothies with berries for a polyphenol-rich punch. You can toss some lemon, tahini, and garlic for a warm kale salad, or stir it into soups, stews, or lentils for extra fiber. And if you want to make your salad a little bit more punchy, you can think about adding some tomatoes. Did you know that tomatoes were once believed to be poisonous and deadly? There's two reasons for that. The leaves and stems are poisonous, so make sure you take the leaves and stems out of the tomato before you eat it. And in the old days, people would also serve cooked tomatoes on pewter plates. The problem is the old pewter plates were made out of lead, and tomatoes are acidic. So if you put an acid on lead, the lead will leach out. So a bunch of people got lead poisoning and didn't make it. Now today, people know better than to serve food on lead plate, but some glassware is still made out of lead. So be careful that you're not using the wrong type of glass that shouldn't have any food in it. Tomatoes are packed with lycopene, a carotenoid that has strong anti-inflammatory effects. Lycopene specifically downregulates NF-kappa B, a transcription factor that drives chronic inflammation inside visceral fat cells. Now, when NF-kappa B goes down, NF tumor necrosis factor alpha and IL-6 also drop. So this is calming your hormones and your cytokines. Lycopene also improves endothelial function, which indirectly supports better metabolic flexibility. So the one thing I do is I slow roast cherry tomatoes with a little bit of olive oil and herbs. That's a warm, simple side dish that will boost your carotenoid absorption thanks to a little bit of healthy fat. Now, lycopene isn't just signaling. Lycopene upregulates PPAR alpha, that same fat-burning pathway activated by fasting or endurance training. PPAR alpha activation will boost fatty acid beta oxidation. This means less fat stored, more fat burned. Particularly affects hepatic fat, the fat in your liver, which is linked to more visceral fat in the rest of your body. So several studies show lycopene-rich diets are associated with lower waistline circumference and reduced hepatic steatosis or fatty liver. The mitochondria inside your fat and liver cells, they're especially vulnerable to reactive oxygen species. And lycopene has a signaling oxygen quenching rate twice as high as beta-carotene and 10 times higher than vitamin C. So it helps to stabilize cellular membranes and protects mitochondria function, which is critical for sustained fat oxidation. And unlike most antioxidants, lycopene actually becomes more bioavailable after you heat it. And when you cook the tomatoes, it breaks down some of the plant cell walls, making lycopene easier to absorb. And remember, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, so you can eat it with a little bit of olive oil. Let's go from red to orange. So let's talk about pumpkin and squash. Pumpkin and squash can give you volume without a heavy overload of calories. And they are also high in carotenoids as well as fiber. That means they reduce energy excess, the root cause of visceral fat accumulation. And when you eat these low-calorie foods, you feel full. You don't feel like you're starving. The fiber also slows digestion. It stabilizes blood glucose. And the carotenoids, again, it activates fat-burning pathways similar to carrots and sweet potatoes. And because these foods are so satisfying, they naturally lower overall intake of high caloric foods, and this keeps your hormones stable. You can always cook down the pumpkin into a broth to make a soup and add some ginger and nutmeg. It's warm, it's grounding, and generally thermogenic. And these aren't just fall decorations, they're metabolic allies. But there is one fat-burning accelerator drink all on its own, and that's green tea. Now, if carotenoids are the signal, then catechins are the accelerator. So number 8. Drink some green tea. It is loaded with EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, a potent polyphenol that boosts fat oxidation by increasing norepinephrine signaling. It blocks pancreatic lipase, reducing dietary fat absorption. A 12-week double-blind placebo-controlled trial in Japan showed a significant drop in visceral fat in people consuming 600 milligrams of catechins daily. The most effective teas are matcha and sancha, which are minimally processed, and they are high in catechins. So let's go from bitter to sweet, like berries. Blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, they're loaded with anthocyanins, polyphenols that directly reduce NF-kappa B activation and oxidative stress inside your visceral fat tissue. They also improve endothelial cell function. They improve insulin sensitivity. Now, regular berry intake has been linked to lower abdominal fat in multiple cohort studies. And personally, I think berries are perfectly created. I don't add anything to them. I just enjoy them as is. And the minute you heat it up, you're going to be losing a massive amount of anthocyanins. Hence, I don't like jams or jellies. It will really never replace fresh berries, even if you don't have the sugar calories in it. But if you do decide to make jams or jellies, maybe don't cook it, just mash it and add some dates and then freeze it. But if you're willing to fire up your metabolism, then learn to eat some chili peppers. Chili peppers contain capsaicin, which gently increases thermogenesis and fat oxidation. It doesn't spike cortisol like other stimulants. However, it nudges your metabolism up. Capsaicin also supports appetite regulation and has been shown to reduce abdominal fat when paired with a lower calorie diet. I often cook with chili with my grains and lentils. It's kind of like using bay leaf. It just adds flavor to the water. And then after you've cooked it, you can always take it, chop it up, and then mash it and mix it in another dish. They really add an umami flavor to my dishes. A little heat goes a long way. Speaking of heat, have you moved yet? Because if you really wanted to maximize your fat burning, then you got to do strategic movements. Now you can do some daily, or you can schedule maybe 2 45-minute sessions of moderate intensity moving, like cycling, in a week's time. And when people do that, they can drop their visceral fat, improve their insulin sensitivity, and reduce their subcutaneous fat in just as little as 2 months. Now, visceral fat reduction often happens before big weight changes occurs that can be measured on the scale. And remember, when you move, you got to move enough to reach your 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. So that means vigorous movement or high intensity exercise to get your aerobic training working. But the best movement is when you actually do consistently. And you really don't have to invest in a bicycle to lose weight. Now, people can lose weight with just a good pair of shoes, or they can actually use a pen. And if you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.